Hello, everybody. So glad to be here. Hey, in the United States, it is Labor Day. So happy Labor Day to you if you are here in the United States. And today we're going to be talking about how to think like a leader. And this is some really exciting stuff because when you can begin to think this way, it's going to make a huge impact in your online tutoring business. So let's start talking about, we're on chapter 13. This is the last chapter of this book, The Magic of Thinking Big. And if you haven't had a chance to get it, definitely go grab a copy of this book. You can get it on Amazon or you can get a free PDF by going to my website. There's a free link inside of there, and my dear friend Beth will grab that link for you and throw it on in so that you guys can see that. We already have some people coming on in, so I'm so grateful that you guys are here. We've got Raja, who is an Arabic online tutor. We've got Beth in here, who is a Spanish tutor. Laura Bonner is in the house, and many more. So you guys keep telling us who you are, where you're from, and what it is that you tutor. And as I go through today, feel free to ask any questions. I can bring them on into the conversation. Just one rule, let's make it on topic of what we're talking about versus how do I get students, because what I'm going to be talking about today leads to a higher level of being able to get students. So know that a lot of the topics that I cover do talk about this, but if you don't understand this concept that we're going to be talking about today, you're going to struggle with getting students, okay? So in the book, he says that when you think like a leader, you're not pulled to you're pulled to high levels of success. But also you're lifted by those who are working beside you and below you. Achieving high-level success requires the support and the cooperation of others. Success and the ability to lead others, that is, getting them to do things they wouldn't do if they were not led, go hand in hand. Now, he says there's 4 leadership rules or principles. Number 1, trade minds with the people you want to influence. So the people that you want to influence are your ideal clients and the students, okay? And so we're going to talk about how do you specifically trade minds. Number 2 is to think of what is the human way to handle this. I have so many people tell me, well, how do I lay down the law with my clients? And how do I make them do this? And how do I make them do that? And it's like, okay, first of all, let's kind of take away some of that anger you're experiencing right now and just have clear and concise expectations set out from the get-go. That will help eliminate. But when things do arise, like if a student does need to reschedule, then act humanely towards it. A lot of people will sometimes think, oh my gosh, they're just taking advantage of me and those kinds of things. And it's like, no, let's remember that everybody is human, everybody makes mistakes, and we want to get everybody understanding. If you have somebody who's not able to make a session 3 times in a row, ask them, when you follow up with them, it looks like this time isn't really working very well with your schedule. Let's find a time that's going to work better with your schedule so we can be more consistent each week, right? That would be the humane way to be able to handle that situation. Number 3 is to think progress, believe in progress, and push for progress. And number 4 is to take time out to confer with yourself and develop your supreme thinking power. Now, I am going to be tip number 4, take time out to confer with yourself. I'm going to be laying out a huge announcement on Thursday's YouTube Live that you can come and join and hear more about how you can specifically do this. So definitely, if you're here with me right now, mark that on your calendar, 11:30 a.m. Central. You don't want to miss it. Huge announcement. All right. Now, there was this guy that he mentions inside of the book named Ted. Now, Ted worked as a television copywriter and director for a large advertising agency. And he says when the agency obtained a new account, a children's shoe manufacturer, Ted was assigned the responsibility for developing several TV commercials. All right, so he did this. It says a month or so after the campaign had been launched, it became clear that the advertising was doing little or nothing to increase product movement in the retail outlets. And attention was focused on the TV commercials because in most cities, only television advertising was used. So they knew that the problem was definitely the commercial. So they researched the television viewers, and they found that only 4% of the people thought it was simply a great commercial. One of the best, said the 4%. But then there's that 96%, right? The 96%, they were indifferent to those commercials. And they thought they smelled hundreds of comments like those were volunteered. They said it's wacky. The rhythm sounds like a New Orleans band at 3 a.m. My kids like to watch most TV commercials, but when this one comes on, they go to the bathroom or the refrigerator. Oh my gosh. It says, I think it's too uppity. Seems to be that someone's trying to be too clever. So here's the problem. Ted was trying to think about all of the things that he thought would be great instead of doing the opposite. So the results would have been much different, they said, had Ted projected himself into the masses of the ordinary people and asked them 2 questions. If I were a parent, what kind of commercial would make me want to buy those shoes? And the other question is, if I were a child, what kind of commercial would make me go tell my mom or dad that I want those shoes? See, now when you start looking at your commercial from that point of view, all of a sudden something happens. And I know some of you guys are saying, I know that you're already thinking inside of your heads like, well, how do I do that? Like, I don't know what the parents are thinking. Or some of you are thinking, oh my gosh, Joanne, this sounds like the empathy chart that you teach us. Yes, it is, right? Because if I can all of a sudden think about what they're thinking, I now can create a video or a commercial based off that. And that's what we can do with our tutoring as well. This is what leaders do. They don't think from their perspective. They begin to think from other people's perspectives. And this is how we really need to do if we want to be able to do that. So I actually wrote a little note in here the very first time I wrote this. I said, we think because of how educated we are that parents are going to appreciate our degrees and experience, right? So that's usually one of the first things that we list. But at the end of the day, the only thing that matters are results, because that's what the parent cares about. The parent cares about that their child is able to get those results that they want to be able to get, right? So I want you to think about your industry that you're specifically working with. What results do those parents want? Now, I know as we move into the high school, it becomes pretty clear the parents want them to be able to graduate from high school, get into their dream college, right? Sometimes with the class, it's like they just want them to pass the class because it's a core requirement. Or it could be because it's a class that's associated with something they want to major in when they go to college. They want them to get an A. So it really depends. You got to know who your audience is and your subject matter so you can know what kinds of results the parent wants so that that's what you can focus on instead of focusing on, I have this degree from this school and I have this many years of experience, right? It becomes really boring. It's important to us, but it's not important to them. All right, so he says, here's how you can practice trading minds. So you want to if you want to give somebody work instructions, you want to look at the viewpoint of someone who's new to this. Like they've never done it before. And have you made yourself very clear on what it is that you want them to do? That's going to be really, really important. Let's say you're writing an advertisement for your tutoring. Well, if you were a typical prospective buyer, how would you react to it? A lot of people always tell me, oh my gosh, I don't want to feel like, I am too salesy and that kind of stuff, right? You know what? Every day you're trying to sell yourself. And I don't think people actually realize that. Think about the last time you had a really strong opinion about something and you wanted other people to take your side on what you believed. In essence, you were trying to sell them on your belief. Now, whether you saw it as that or not, that's what you were doing. And so there's nothing really different here. We just have to always look at it from the mind frame, the mindset of the other person, know what they're going to think already, and be able to speak from that perspective. When it comes to telephone manners, for the best results, ask yourself, if I were the other person, what would I think of my telephone voice and manners? Could be the same thing with Zoom, right? So if I were the other person, what would I think of the way that I look when I present myself for the very first time on Zoom to a brand new client? Now, in the beginning, I didn't think about these things. I had a really dark background. You could hardly see my face. But today you can tell I've got some lighting inside of my office. I've got, a professional background that is back here that makes it look nicer than what is actually just a basement office, right? So this looks a lot nicer than that. Yeah, a lot of people, the majority, I would say, so a lot of people are kind of talking about, like, are we taking the day off for Labor Day? I don't take the day off for Labor Day. I feel like Labor Day is more for employees than employers or business owners. At the end of the day, I'm really happy to have my Saturday and Sunday off. And so figure out what days you want to be able to have off when it comes to your business. So I work with kids from all over the world. They do not have a Labor Day over in the UK that is today, right? So I just go about my day as a regular day while the rest of my family is doing something. There's very little that we can do right here in the United States that I wasn't able to do on Saturday or Sunday. So it's like, really, what is the point of taking the day off? I might as well continue to make an income versus tell all my clients I'm taking the day off. Now, if it's really important for you to take the day off, that is a completely different situation. At that point, if it's like super important, there's something going on, you have a family celebration, or, you really want to be present for your family, something like that, then by all means, organize your schedule so that you can take the day off, definitely. But for me, the day doesn't really mean that much, and so I don't take the day off. But if you were to employ other people and expect them to work, now that's a completely different situation, right? Because their expectation is going to be that everyone takes the day off, so you better let me have the day off too. Employee mindset, business owner mindset. Right? It's kind of like thinking like a leader, isn't it? Like, it was just what we're talking about, like right now, is I definitely let my clients know, hey, if you've got something going on, let me know. Otherwise, I plan on still doing tutoring as our normal schedule. Gift. So you got a gift. Is this a gift of something that I would like? Or is it something that this other person would like? And usually there's an enormous difference. So like I can always tell, like, the people that their love language is getting gifts, because they love giving gifts. But usually the giving of the gifts usually ends up being the things that they enjoy and the things that they like. They rarely think about from the point of view, what would that person really like? My mother-in-law is so good at being able to think of what would the other person really like, and really tailors it so well, and versus thinking about, like, oh, well, what would I like, and giving that to them. And it makes a huge difference then in how people receive the gift too. They get really excited about the presents that she gives, and she's really good at listening to when people say, oh, I wish I had that, or I wish I had this, and like she like inside giggles and grabs it for them, and then saves it for gift giving purposes, Christmas, birthday, whatever. So it's awesome. Think about the way that you give orders. And again, we're going to trade places here. Would I like to carry out orders if they were given to me the way that I just gave them? Right? So, and this is like really typical, like in the beginning, like, you have to know what your boundaries are as a tutor, but you don't ever want to seem like somebody who is extremely bossy and picky and all of that kind of stuff. It's not going to come off as a positive trait from the other person. They're going to view you as being bossy. Think about your appearance. So for the best results, you want to ask yourself, what would I think of my superior if he were dressed like me? Right? Preparing a speech or video. Ask yourself, considering the background and interests of the people I'm speaking to, what would I think of this remark? Or what would I think of this speech? And then entertainment. I've been preparing this in a really big way. And it says, for your best results, ask yourself, if I were my guest, what kinds of food, music, and entertainment would I like best? So not what would I like to cook the best, but what would they enjoy the most? So when you start trading minds with other people, amazing things happen. And so when I teach people about the empathy chart, we're often thinking about what is the other person feeling, thinking, saying, hearing, doing, and what are their dreams? What are their fears? So you always want to know, leadership rule number 2 is to think. What is the human way to handle this? He says dictators don't last long. Yeah, if you follow history, you'll see that is true, that dictators do not last that long. A second leadership technique is the cold, mechanical, I'm a rule book operator approach. Right? This person doesn't recognize that every rule or policy or plan is only a guide for the usual cases. Now, it's different when you work for a company. You don't have a choice. You have to tell people that these are the rules because that's what you're paid to do. But when you run your own business, you now get to act even more humanely than ever. You can be understanding that things happen. You can build in strategies that will help you with communication with your clients. One of the things I have realized is that I'm really quick with my phone and texting now because my phone is always by me. That used to not be the case. I used to be in front of my email a lot more often than my text. Well, I've also noticed that so are my clients. When I text them, they text me back pretty quickly. So if I have a student that doesn't show up, I'll be like, hey, I thought we had, this time scheduled, or hey, all set when so-and-so is, and then bam, they're on the computer, just like that. Quick reminder, it took me 2 seconds. And when I'm onboarding my students, I think one of the really cool things to do is to just add in the parent's phone number immediately into my phone with their name. That way, if they ever text me, it automatically, I see it, and I'm like, oh, that's so-and-so's parent. So I will put in the student's name, like Caden's mom, Ashley. And then that helps me know, oh, okay, Ashley's asking something about Caden or needs to switch time or needs to do something. That works so well because of how often people are on there and they really appreciate the immediacy of that process. So it doesn't have to be like, you didn't show up, so I'm docking you 5 minutes of your time. No, I mean, I've already written it inside of my expectations. Look, there'll be times where I can make up that time if you guys are late, but most of the time I cannot because I have back-to-back sessions, right? So they're usually very understanding of this, and it goes really, really well. So I'm so glad that you guys are inside of our video here today. We've got Audrey Conner Gibson. And you know what? It does not surprise me, Audrey, that your parents raised you to treat people the same as you would treat yourself. Because you were such a kind and loving person. I love that. Lynn grew up thinking that everyone was raised that way. But as we know, you guys, that's not true. I mean, the first time that I started realizing that it wasn't true was when I worked at Caldors. And that was a clothing store in Massachusetts. And the way that these people would talk to me, like they forgot that I actually wasn't in charge of certain things, right? Like I'm the person checking you out. And so they would yell at me and they would say things like, that's on sale. You need to give me the sale price. And I'd be like, all of a sudden I started realizing, oh, the way that people talk to you, like, is very different than what you would expect people should talk to you. I have a new rule to me. Now that I have realized that God lives inside of me, If he lives inside of me, guess what? He lives inside of you too. And so when I talk to other people, I talk to you as if you're Jesus. So I try to even be kinder than I would be to myself and be nicer than people would expect in situations. I try to diffuse situations versus increase and elevate. I try to recognize within myself, am I becoming reactive in a negative way? Am I getting defensive for any way? If so, I need to pull back. And I'll even let's say with my husband, sometimes that's the most difficult situation, right? Because we read so much into our spouses. But if all of a sudden I become defensive, I start saying, I'm starting to feel defensive right now because of what you just said. And I feel like right now would be a good time for me to kind of walk away, take a breather, and come back later. And it's a nicer way than just barking something out at him. Is it 100% always happen? No, I am a work in progress. All right, now he says, let's say you have an employee and they're doing something wrong or making a mistake. He says inside of this book, I'm doubly careful not to hurt their feelings and they make them feel small or embarrassed. He says, first, I talk to them privately. Second, I praise them for what they're doing really, really well. Third, I point out one thing at the moment that they could do better, and I help them find the way. And fourth, I praise them again on their good points. He calls this a 4-step formula, and it kind of reminds me of a compliment sandwich where you're thinking of something good to say about them. You're thinking about maybe what didn't go right during that situation and allowing a learning opportunity to happen from the mistake that was made, and then complimenting again. So it's really, really helpful to know that, look, we are human beings. And if you're going to say something negative, you need to double it 2 times at least for what you're going to say that's going to be positive. Because there's way more positive things than negative things. And if we are only focusing on the negative, it is going to hurt people's feelings. He says, here are 2 ways to use the be human approach to make you a better leader. First, each time you face a difficult matter involving people, ask yourself, what is the human way to handle this? Or the real WWJD, which is, what would Jesus do, right? What would he do? What would he do in this situation? Avoid sarcasm. I know this one's a hard one because we think sarcasm is funny. Those of us who are sarcastic, I used to be an extremely sarcastic person. Sometimes I can still bring it on, but I have to be careful because sarcasm can hurt people's feelings, right? It is, I one time read that sarcasm is a form of abuse. And it can be. It's funny for only so long. Avoid being cynical. That's always taking the negative side of things. Avoid taking people down a peg or 2. Look, it's not your place to put them in their place, right? It's not. They already probably do a good enough job of it themselves, right? Yeah, we're laughing in here because some people one person said to me at one point, WWJD, what would Joanne do? And I was like, oh, never heard of that one before. Ask, what is the human way to deal with people? A second way to profit from the be human rule is to let your action show you put people first. Treat everyone with dignity. Remind yourself that the primary purpose in life is to enjoy it. And as a general rule, the more interest you show in a person, the more he will produce for you. And his production is what carries you forward to greater and greater success. We need to respect people and where they are at. You want to praise people, your subordinates, he says, personally at every opportunity. Praise them for their cooperation. Praise them for every extra effort that they put in. Praise is the greatest single incentive that you can give people. And guess what, you guys? This costs nothing. So it's really, really important. Also, Practice praising people. Rub people the right way. I love this. Some of us rub people. If you find that you rub people the wrong way, always remember to be human. Be caring, be kind. There are 2 special things you can do to develop this progressive outlook when it comes. So number 3 is think progress, believe in progress, and push for progress. So you want to think improvement in everything you do and think high standards in everything that you do. Believe in and push for progress, and you're going to be a great leader. And then number 4 is to take time out to confer with yourself and tap into your supreme thinking power. So he says it's noteworthy that leaders spend considerable time alone with nothing but their own thinking apparatus. Check the lives of the great religious leaders and you'll find each of them spent considerable time alone, away from the distractions of life. We see this with Jesus when he goes on out into the desert, right? He goes up mountains. They gain insight through solitude. So you need to find a way to get out of your regular atmosphere so that you can do that. The successful person in any field takes time out to confer with himself or herself. Leaders use solitude to put the pieces of a problem together, to work out solutions, to plan, and in one phrase, to do their super thinking. Because when the fog is lifted, the right choices become clear. And this is really cool, you guys. So, definitely join us on Thursday for our YouTube Live. You've been given a special code if you are in the Jumpstart Masterclass or inside of the Insider Secrets Club to come join me to find out this special information on Wednesday, a day earlier than everybody else. There's a reason why it's a day earlier, you guys. So if you're in one of those 2 groups, definitely use that code that I gave you inside of our Week at a Glance so that you can join us and find out what the special announcement is. Not only that, but you're going to learn 3 ways to create content so that it doesn't have to be so hard for you. Okay? I'm so glad that you guys joined me today, and I will see all of you guys soon.